So why are we here today? Because we like beatbox battles, right? We're all here in the New York Beatbox Championship to celebrate battling. We like supporting each other. We like watching each other. Overall, battles are a great time. Today, we are going to talk about beatboxing outside of battles. Beatboxing has existed for a long time within our core community. And while it's increasing in popularity, it's still mostly underground. And while we realize battling is good for pushing our community, making new discoveries, we also want to achieve success outside of battling as well, right? We want to make it a career. We want to achieve success in beatboxing in many different ways. So that's what this panel is going to explore. And we're going to do a raise your hand sort of thing. So we're going to start with a few. So raise your hand if this is the first beatbox battle you've been to. All right, good amount of people.
Quite a few.
Raise your hand if my paper's dropped, but raise your hand if the only beatbox events you've been to are battles. Wow, that's surprising. That's actually pretty surprising. I thought it would be more than that. And then last question, raise your hand if you think most people misunderstand what beatboxing is. Okay, that's pretty much everyone. Everyone on the judge panel, I'm going to raise my hand for that one. Everyone in the crowd raise their hand for that. This is a common issue, a lot of beatboxers, a lot of beatboxing, a lot of people see it as a party trick. A lot of people kind of still stigmatize what beatboxing is. So yeah, Jack, do you want to talk more about that?
But yeah, really we're here to prove that it's an art form and it's monetizable and you can make a career out of it. But it's easy to look at another case study and see what we can learn from it. So for example, if anyone's familiar with the skateboarding scene, right? That's another artistic art form that started completely underground and now has achieved such amazing mainstream success. And there's people like sponsored skaters. Skating is also at the Olympics now, and it's very similar to beatbox in that it's insanely technical. It's somewhat inaccessible from an outsider just looking in, but there are people who have made it more accessible, and there are companies who have come and made it more profitable too. So part of the goal here is how can we make beatboxing more accessible for people, and how can we bring more money into the scene to make more events like this possible and make it so that all of us here can make a long-lasting career out of beatboxing. It's really important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And skateboarding is a community that we could learn a lot from. I'm sure all of you are thinking about different subcultures that also sort of followed a similar path, whether they succeeded or not. We'd love to talk about all of them, but we don't have enough time for this panel, so we are going to jump to our panelists for the first question. I guess we'll start with BizKit and then move our way down. So for our panelists, how did you get your first beatbox gig? What was it like, and is it still similar to the gigs that you do today?
I think my first beatbox gig was a So-Far gig. And I'm sure you guys maybe you're familiar with So-Far. They're kind of everywhere. They're in a lot of cities, this one included, New York City. And yeah, I think So-Far is they're a pretty good brand to get gigs with, because they're always looking for new talent, and it's a really good setting to try out stuff and get, an audience of people that really just want to hear you. Whatever you bring to the table, they're there to hear something new, to hear something interesting, maybe something they'd never heard before. And so a beatboxer fits that mold really well. And have any of you guys done So-Fars before?
Yes.
Yes. So far, they're so far so good. Does an open mic count?
No, when was the first time you were paid to beatbox?
Okay, so it was from an open mic. I met someone at an open mic who was a hip hop dancer, and they invited me to a hip hop dance battle, and they wanted a beatboxer to just drop beats the whole time. I think I got $100 for 4 hours of just straight beatboxing. But yeah, I just beatboxed while all the break dancers were just competing against each other. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was fun.
So similar to John Carlos, I started out doing a lot of shows at raves, illegal raves, various other stuff. In the very beginning, I think my first one was when I was 13, 14. That was the first time I'd actually grabbed the mic and beatboxed. But then from that point on, I had my first paid gig, which was at some rinky-dink, horrible venue in my local town, which is not somewhere you ever want to be. I think I got the first show, I did a 15-minute set, and I think I got £25. And I remember shaking. I'd already been on stage, I'd already performed, I'd done that kind of stuff, but this was like first paid gig, so I felt a responsibility. And then, the set just went from bad to worse. As all first kind of ones like that do, but yeah, that was a £25, about 15 minutes.
Yeah, so technically my first gig was as a beatboxer with an a cappella group. So I was in a professional group out of Baltimore for a few years called Ember, and with them, we ended up like getting out into like the local music scene, like the a cappella scene, like connecting, and technically got paid as a beatboxer with them. I think our share was like, I don't know, like $100 maybe each or something like that. So I got paid like 600 or something total like that. We had done so far, and then my first paid gig as a beatboxer, like just as a solo show, was also at an a cappella event. So like from those a cappella connections that I had made and like the local music connections that I had made, I ended up getting that gig, and it was like a 30-minute set in like early 2019 at a cappella show. And yeah, I got paid a couple $100. It was like pretty big because I was the first thing I'd done solo, and like 30 minutes straight is like kind of a lot, you know. So like, but it was a lot of fun. It led to like, you know, other things. But yeah, so that was mine.
Yeah, Jack and I are also going to answer the question real quick. My first gig was also a SOFAR. However, I keep dropping my papers. I'm so unfamiliar with like how the industry worked at the time that I thought the email said I needed to pay $100 to perform. That is how little I knew about gigs at the time. Obviously, I was very pleasantly surprised to hear that I would be getting $100, not paying it, since I knew SOFAR was a big organization. But that was my first experience.
My first gig came through the beatboxing community. Someone gave me, well, first of all, I did these Long Island beatbox events way before I was able to perform as an artist by myself, but through the beatboxing community here in New York, someone passed me a gig to perform in Times Square for an engagement. Some rich person was proposing to their now, I guess, hopefully wife, in Times Square, the most like anti-New York thing you could ever do, like trip to New York, propose, and I was hired to beatbox Empire State of Mind while he popped the question. So yeah, that was my first paid gig. There was a singer and a rapper, and I just did the beat, and then there was like a what do you call it, like a flash mob, but it was like a choir, a flash choir that came out and sang like a bunch of like gospel music. It was an interesting experience, but I joined them, I sang along. I didn't know any of the music.
So just from this panel alone, you could see that we have a pretty interesting variety of first gigs. The next question, we're actually going to go to Match specifically. Match, you just moved to New York City. What's it been like pursuing professional beatboxing here? How does it compare to where you previously lived?
Yeah, so I'm from Delaware. Make some noise for Delaware, guys. Woo! Yeah, Delaware, not so good for shows. For shows in like the music scenes, specifically where I was, which was Southern Delaware. So after which I think we'll be getting into this like later in the panel, but I finished like a cruise ship performing contract, came back in March, and I was like, I need to move because I want to like pursue this more. So I moved in with a friend that I'd met on my cruise ship performing contract, and I mean, so far it's been great. I have done some SOFAR sound shows in New York. I had that connection from when I lived in Delaware, and I was doing like Philly, DC, Baltimore stuff. And yeah, so I've been doing those. I've been doing like a lot of like just like local, like even just going to local shows and like meeting people in the local community. You'll make really good connections that way. Doing open mics, I've like opened comedy shows, things like that. You get like, you know, it might be like a 5-10 minute set. You'll get like $80 maybe, but like I view some of those things, some of those really like smaller things as like ways to further network and like connect with people, and like you'll build upon that. So yeah, it's been going great, Darren. Thanks for asking, brother.
Of course, happy to hear that it's going great. And I actually have one more question for you. I'm sorry I'm making you talk a lot, but it's also for BV as well. You actually already mentioned this in your, mentioned this in your answer. I wanted to ask you both about your experience on the cruise ship as the Noise Boys. So how did you guys get that opportunity? What was that opportunity like? And most importantly, was it worth it?
Yeah, it was great. There were a lot of ups. There's a lot of ups and downs about working on a cruise ship. That's just how it is. Just as like with any full-time job, but it was cool. The way I got the opportunity was they were looking for US-based beatboxers for the show, okay? And I have a website, which I think if you want to put yourself out there and make a website for yourself, have it up there. That's super important because they cold emailed me to audition. They had searched for US beatboxers, found my website, cold emailed me. I was like, all right. I thought it was a scam at first because it was like beatboxer needed for Norwegian cruise. I was like, beatboxers don't get gigs. This has to be fake. But
Especially not Norwegian.
I researched it, looked it up. It was legit. Auditioned and I got the job the next week. So sometimes those things just fall in your lap like that. But if I hadn't put myself out there and had that website made for a few years and things like that, I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. So yeah, that was my experience with getting the gig. And Louis, you can talk about here.
Yeah, so I worked with Noise Boys in 2018, earlier on doing the promo for all of their kind of theater promo pieces of content. So they already had me kind of on their mind at that point, but then like everything, and obviously I don't know if you touched on this bit, but we had to go through a audition process. So there's still other people in mind, and yeah, me and Mike got through that audition process, and then met in London. We had to do like a kind of was it a week workshop or was it a few days? It was about a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, like 3 days in London, yeah.
So we did like a 3-day workshop, learned the show, learned various sections, and then we were just kind of workshopping it all the way through, flew to Tampa, built the show from scratch in 2 weeks, which was...
Yeah.
And then just stayed on a boat for 8 months, and yeah, it was like you say, up and down, but it was good, it was worth it. It's definitely something that I would recommend doing in your earlier years than in your later years, I would say.
Yeah, I would also say that. I think it's also worth noting that, so Hobbit, I'm sure a lot of us know through the beatbox community, UK beatbox legend, international legend, Hobbit, he is on the creative team for this show that we were in. So that's another thing of a connection that you have from years ago can potentially, anything like that goes a long way. So I think that's also super important to note. But yeah. That was kind of our experience. It was great. We got to go to a lot of places, did four shows a week, and yeah, it was. In case you didn't know, it was beatboxing and tap dancing put together. It was like a whole thing like that. It was a hour-long theater show that we did on with Norwegian Cruise Line for 8 months.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, super sick. All sorts of different opportunities, but not all beatboxing professionally opportunities are in the actual performance art themselves. Like one example that you may be familiar with is within education. So I wanted to ask ELISII down there at the panel representing beatbox education, what is it like for you as a beatbox educator, how have you grown your career? Is it a viable career path for you? And just tell us kind of about that journey.
Yeah, so honestly, the way things kind of panned out for me was pretty lucky. I did a couple of gigs with an a cappella group that I met through Barry Wham. Barry Wham came to Montreal, they did a show and they asked me to open, and they also asked this a cappella group to open. So we linked up and then we started doing summer tours together, and they actually do a lot of work in schools. They do a lot of shows, assemblies, stuff like that. And they started plugging me because every time they would go to a school, they would get asked, oh, is there a beatboxing workshop that you offer? Or is there some kind of beatbox show that you offer? So now I'm starting to fill that market and fill that gap in schools, and they're acting as my agency. So I'm using a lot of their connections to get these shows. And it's treating me pretty well. There's consistent bookings, it's nice, and I feel like it's a noble cause. I'm spreading beatboxing to the youth and creating more beatboxers, hopefully the next world champ or something. But now it's about building that funnel where okay, you saw ELISII do a workshop in your school, now you're obsessed with beatboxing because ELISII is so amazing. And then where do you go from there, right? Do you go on YouTube? Do you learn stuff on your own? Do you hit up Beatbox Education, which you should, and learn from Beatbox Education? So we're trying to build that funnel out now.
I was also a beatbox education student. ELISII, Villain, as well as Den and Vino from Canada, they helped me out a lot. They gave me a lot of really great input. There's going to be a beatbox education workshop right after this, just as a little plug. And if you're interested in joining the program, definitely talk to them. It's a really, really great program. But yeah, outside of education as well, we have another part of beatboxing, one that I would argue is pretty big, and it's the business side of beatboxing. It's growing. There's a lot of people who are kind of like serving as one-man armies, Jack included, and you know, events especially are a very big part of beatboxing culture. So Jack, do you want to talk more about your experience, you know, being a businessman in beatboxing and how it's, you know, been like doing Long Island Beatbox and just helping with events, helping with different organizations?
Yeah, being a businessman in beatbox, that's quite the title, right? Yeah, I mean, the thing about doing events for me is that it was a very accessible way for me to have a big impact on the community. And how I got started was taking a class at university called Concert Management. And the final project of that class was to throw a show. And so I booked like a local band at Rockwood Music Hall in downtown Manhattan, and we did like a simple show, maybe like 30 people showed up. But it taught me everything I needed basically to throw the first Long Island Beatbox battle a few months later in Long Island back in 2019. And being an organizer is really awesome because I get to enable everyone to have experiences like this and push the culture from this end. Whereas ELISII was talking about starting with the youth and bringing them like up as beatboxers, I get to bring the people who already identify as beatboxers more into the community. And honestly, I'm so honored to have thrown such great events. I get great reception for them, but also a lot of people come up to me and say, that was my first beatbox event. I expose a lot of new people to beatboxing. So while pursuing as an artist is great, and I'd love to start doing that too, or continue doing that, I should say, doing the events and doing the business side, trying to enable others to make their art in front of bigger audiences or create better opportunities is really important and something that we should all consider. And even as you are an artist, you are also a business. You are out there to promote yourself and get yourself those shows. So even if you don't want to do something like make events or manage artists or do marketing or some boring businessy stuff like that, you can pursue your art like a business and try and make it more economically viable for yourself or for others. So that's all I really have to add on that. And like he also said, Long Island Beatbox is like a one-man operation. Everything that you've ever seen from Long Island Beatbox came from like the work that I put into it. And recently I've been thinking about expanding it, but it's hard to just because of the nature of the business. And it's just, again, very special. So I'm very grateful that you guys are all here doing an event like this with us. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. And one more, if I could add one more point, because I keep thinking of more things. Do it, just do it. Really just do it. What Long Island Beatbox started as was an Instagram page where I accepted shout outs from anyone in the world. And then I started, I did shout outs. Yeah, I think, did you do a shout out? You did one of the original?
Yeah, I did one. It probably sucked.
It was great. I'm sure Darren did one too. And then started throwing events and people start recognizing it. You can make content from that. So instead of asking random people to send you a beatboxing, you organize an event where people are happy to give that to you, right? Because it enlightens their day, it enlightens their whole artistry. So yeah, that's all I really have to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really great insight from Jack. And you want to talk about money and bridging the gap between beatboxing and the entertainment industry as a whole?
Yeah, because as I mentioned earlier, the nature of the business is very difficult. There's not a lot of money that flows into beatboxing, right? We throw something called the New York Beatbox Championships, and we're so grateful that you guys are here. But it is still a very small event, very underground. Every event we've ever been to, except for like Grand Beatbox Battle. Would you guys consider Grand Beatbox Battle even underground? Like it's still quite niche.
Yeah, it's still quite niche.
So, and what I'm saying is that there's not a lot of money flowing into the scene. So one question that we hope to share some insight on, and I want to ask everyone this, is how can we begin to bridge the gap between beatboxing and the entertainment industry at large? So I guess we'll start with BizKit and come down the line.
It's not like necessarily a lucrative business strategy, but just putting yourself out there on social media, Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, something easy and like, low committal, like in terms of like viewership. And, anybody can stumble across your content and people can be like, that could be like their first potential exposure to beatboxing. Whether it gets viral or not, somebody's gonna see it somewhere, It's not like nobody's gonna look at it. And then they can be like, oh, I've seen people do that before, but this guy does it a little differently, or I've never seen that before. and you can bridge that gap that way. And what was the question?
The question was, how do we bridge the gap between beatboxing and entertainment in the pursuit of like making it a more viable career opportunity for people to enter this industry?
Huh.
You gave a great answer.
Okay.
To another question.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I think, just going to more events, and I think the main thing that everybody has been saying here is networking. I think that it plays such a huge part, whether it be, through people who run the events, through people who are, doing gigs outside. Like, I got a gig recently as a dancer because that's what I go to school for. It's another one of my passions. And Chris Elise, he's in the back somewhere. The Beatbox House, they do this show called The Missing Element. It's very good if you haven't seen it. And one of the dancers was unable to make it. And just because I know the Beatbox House and they know I dance, I got like thrown in last second, and it was a really cool opportunity. So, going to events and putting yourself out there is probably like the best thing overall that you could do to get those opportunities.
Great answer. And we'll pass it on to ELISII. How do we bridge the gap between beatboxing and entertainment, where all the money's at?
I think it's a unique question because the entertainment industry has changed in itself. Like now there's streaming services and like people gravitate more to YouTube than they would like your normal TV channels. I just want to make note, I was telling you about this before, like the air guitar world championships are on ESPN, and like
why can't we get a beatbox battle on ESPN?
Yeah, like GBB or like world champs or like any battle isn't. And like GBB had 450,000 concurrent viewers, right? So like one point I want to make is like I think it's also up to the leaders in our scene to have those connections and make those connections. Like I don't think there's a reason why beatboxing can't be on ESPN or on TV. Like the rights to broadcast a beatbox battle should be bought, right? Yeah, that's kind of a rant, but also in terms of bridging the gap, like every time you make a YouTube video, you're starting to bridge that gap. And people like Shogo, like in Japan, like the beatboxers are like celebrities there from what I hear. And like stuff like that is bridging the gap. Shogo was like reposted by the official Instagram account. Like that's insane. Like it's really about pushing the art as much as you can and showcasing it the best way possible, even if it's just on YouTube and Instagram. And it's also, you could push it to mainstream as a party trick per se, but you could also push it as an artist. And I don't know if those two like different paths, this is probably gonna get some hate, but like the Spencer X route where you're like kind of parading it as a party trick, or like the Shogo route where you're being like an artist and you're making full tracks. I don't know if those clash or like don't help each other, but it's interesting. And I think you can use more of the gimmicky tactics to then promote, the stuff that you really want to pursue. And, whether or not, you feel that compromises your integrity, that's completely up to you. It's like, oh, do I maybe do this thing that kind of feels like selling out to then reach a point where I know that I don't need to do that and I can just be my most authentic self with the fan base that I've made? And, maybe there's a drop off in followers after like, oh, what is this? But I guarantee you there will be a lot more people that stick around because now they're getting the full picture and they're getting more insight into, your true artistic side.
I think there's one thing that's key to remember. Your social media, your content, this is all a catalyst for credibility. What I mean by this is essentially, this is what, when you are networking, you do have that conversation with anybody, whether it's in the club or on the street or you're out busking and someone approaches you, that first impression is going to be your performance, but at the same time, it's also going to be, I just met this guy in the bakery, here's my social media, oh, you've got that many followers, people seem to like and engage with what you do, instant catalyst for credibility, and straight away from that point, people are going to take you more seriously, and that's where you have more leverage to then work your pricing into your shows and all those kind of things. So when we're talking about bridging the gap, between industry and industry, I mean, beatbox industry and entertainment industry is the same thing, really. The only difference is that there hasn't been a wedge within the market that has allowed us to fit in there seamlessly, which is why we have to create our own space, which is why people like Donnie's doing so well now, because he does use those short format content pieces to promote larger pieces of, or larger projects, should I say. You've got people like the Beatbox House, you know, they've now back onto the Instagram, back onto building the socials again, because that's going to elevate all of the shows that they've done previously. If Beatbox House wanted to do a show, let's say someone went, oh, here's $100 for this, right? Which it would never be. I know you wouldn't accept it, Chris. Then they're like, oh, well, now we've got collectively 1 million followers between us all. We have our credibility and we know what we're worth. It's a bargaining chip. Think of every single conversation when you're networking, when you're selling yourself as, I'm in sales now. You know, somebody can barter you down, but you have to make sure that you set your price as high as you can. You'll be surprised at what you actually manage to achieve by believing in yourself. You have to remember that, because the amount of times that you will go like, oh, $25? I think I'm worth that. Yeah, you stand up and you go, yeah, it's going to be 300. Yeah, for that 15 minutes. Yeah, cool. 250? Nah, 275. All right, deal. You have to make sure that you stand with your head high and make sure that you are taking those conversations seriously as you can. But also the main thing, bridging that gap, is, like you said, it's going to those events. The amount of shows I've had from going to shows is ridiculous. That was like a whole quote unquote business model for a long time. But you know, we have to have diverse revenue streams. Bridging the gap is great, but it might not always be shows that keeps you sustained. So you need to, you know, that's why I have jewelry in there and various other stuff as well, because it is obviously a passion, but when you make that part of your brand, it all becomes one entity. So think of it this way. If you're a sole trader in the UK at least, if you are Ghosts, right? Let's say you're Ghost, and I like playing pickleball, right? Really weird example. But if that then becomes part of your brand, then all of your pickleball rackets are free. You can throw tournaments and all your rehearsal spaces, your practice spaces for free. So it's about encompassing and bundling your entire identity into one persona so that the business pays for itself, or you can put things against the business. That helps bridge that gap simply for the fact of your branding is strong, your identity is clear, you've already built up your social networks, and then you have different revenues that can sustain you throughout those moments and journey.
Yeah. The biggest thing in terms of like kind of bridging like between the like this like beatbox community that we like know it as we know it, and like doing gigs like outside of this is honestly which like I think we'll probably be getting into this a bit more into the panel as well, but like not viewing battles as like the only form of beatboxing, and like thinking of like promoting yourself as like an artist, and like not just having that narrow view of like the only beatbox things I do are battles or tournaments or, you know, stuff like that. So like I think that's super important. I think the time that I spent away like performing full time really gave me like a good perspective, because I used to think that battles were kind of everything. I definitely got into my head about that a lot, as I think we all do when we start off in this like community, where like battles are the only thing that matter. I want a title, blah blah blah. I still don't have a title, guy. Like the only title I have is like East Coast Tag Team Champ, which means, I mean, you know, it's cool, but like I don't have a single solo title, but like I've been a full-time beatboxer, so like that's just kind of what it is. I think that's probably, besides obviously keeping networking in mind with everything, the social media stuff, I think the biggest thing is not viewing battles as like the only route, I think, and like getting outside of that. And yeah, I think that's my answer.
What battle has Spencer X won? He's got the most followers on TikTok
Shout out
ever.
to Chris Elite.
Never won one beatbox battle, bro.
Yeah, and it's important to make songs with your beatboxing that are longer than 90 seconds. All right.
Yeah, I just want to say really, really great answers from all four of these guys. A lot of great insight. Something PV said actually really resonated with me. I think your personality is part of your performance, right? Like there's a lot of really impressive things in the world that I do not personally pay attention to. Like, for example, like magic. I did not pay attention to any magic until I watched Shin Lim. Now, he was performing for a very mainstream audience, but that got me interested. And that started to, get me to watch more of his performances. And then I met someone who actually competes in magic, and he told me more about that. So unless I saw the personality of Shin Lim, who I was like really impressed by, I wouldn't know that much about magic. And I think beatboxing is sort of the same way in a lot of senses. Like, we have personalities who are both good at beatboxing and also entertaining to the people outside of the core community. And I think having that is pretty important. And having them as role models as well, because some of them are pretty annoying, let's not hide it, but there's also some of them that are really great and do represent our community in a good way.
And on that note, I mean, that could be a way to think about, like, contextualize all the different artists. Like, for example, that's why Spencer X may be an important part of our community, because he brings so many people in. Maybe he doesn't do the battles and he doesn't push art in the way that like someone like Shogo does, but it's still important for accessing it. And I think that leads me to my answer, is that there needs to be a culturally significant moment for beatboxers, which has never happened before. Like, for example, if you thought back a few years ago when Pitch Perfect came out, the effect that Pitch Perfect had on the acapella scene, college acapella, professional acapella, and then Pentatonics came around the same time, and they were like really boosting that scene up and made it more notable, right? So how can we, as producers of content, make something that is so culturally relevant that 500 million people engage with it and enjoy it and recognize beatboxing as a more legitimate art form? So that would be my answer, is making something that's super legitimate. Like, for example, I was watching Camp Rock the other day, and there's this character in Camp Rock who's a drummer, and his little gimmick, he's not really a main character, but his gimmick is that he just taps on everything. But if that was a beatboxer, for example, it's not even the main character, but they showcase, like, maybe how many people do you think got into drumming or playing guitar or singing because of a movie like Camp Rock? Right? Like, if there was something like that for us, the Pitch Perfect for our scene has yet to be created. So we're looking for a movie, a book, a piece of content that resonates with the entire world all at once to really elevate us out of the underground.
And note how you don't need to be a beatboxer to create that kind of content. You can use your other skills that you get, from your education or from any other outlets that you might need. Just being a part of the beatbox world and, having a different set of skills is equally beneficial to our community and lifting it up, because there's a lot that you can bring to the table besides just beatboxing. So yeah.
Yeah, super awesome answers. Well, thank you for answering that. That's probably the most pivotal question that we have to ask ourselves as beatboxers, like going into the entertainment industry. Bridging the gap is the most important thing. Okay, so moving on. We wanted to bring it back down to a smaller scale a little bit, and it's about getting those opportunities. How do you get them? And the real answer is, which a lot of people alluded to on this panel, was about brand building. So we wanted to pass the question off to everyone, and what are the strongest ways that someone as a beatboxer can start building a brand? Anyone or everyone can answer this question.
You want to take this? Or
I mean, yeah.
So I feel like I'm sort of a unique case, because like I really don't like social media and I don't post. I think the last time I posted was probably like beginning of August or like late July or something. And I really only post when I need to. But my brand necessarily, like, I'm working in schools and I'm not necessarily diving into other markets at the moment. So my brand is really specific to the school boards that I work with and how I'm branded to them. And all my, not my sponsor package, but like my pamphlet when I go to scholastic conferences and I'm talking to teachers and I'm talking to members of school boards, I'm trying to market myself. Those things matter. And the marketing towards schools is very different than it would be on social media or trying to get shows or trying to get put in a film. My brand per se is like about inclusivity, and then also just, expressing art, culture, and there's a business side to it as well, right? You want to fit in certain budgets, but that's just like the raw truth. There are budgets that you want to fit into when you work in schools, and it's important, but at the same time, I have a lot of fun doing it, and I feel noble doing it, especially because it's for beatboxing, which is what I love. Yeah.
Repeat the question one more time.
Just the biggest elements of branding, like how to create a brand and where to do so.
Okay, yeah. So branding, I think the most important thing is reinvestment. I think for any artist, any beatboxer, I think reinvestment back into your own brand is one of the most important things. Whether that is the look and style of your logo, it might be the quality of your stream, it might be there's so many different factors. It could even be your business cards that you give out. Again, another first impression kind of moment. One thing that I think is something that I've been very blessed to be able to do is turn passion into profit. So I don't just beatbox. I love jewelry, I love gemstones, geology, I love streetwear clothing, I love skateboarding, all sorts of stuff. So I've been able to, over the years, incorporate those into my brand and encompass that as one whole package. This is what we are. We are streetwear, we are bling, we are da-da-da-da, and it all then makes sense as a brand, as a collective of things, as opposed to you make sounds with your mouth and I like it, and that's it, right? So it adds more personality to your brand. And then also, like, as beatboxers, we are the entirety of whatever that business is. It is our face. We're living and breathing it. So you have to give it more dimensions. We all have those dimensions. It's about letting them come out. Nothing is more attracting to an audience or a fan or a friend or whatever than seeing somebody speak about a separate passion or a passion and watching them light up. And in these like kind of interactions you'll have, it might be a promoter, it might be an event agent or any of those kind of things, then that's really going to, when they say to you like, oh, you beatbox, and like, oh, you like this as well, and you're like, yo, yeah. The passion of it just kind of solidifies that they can trust you to do a good job, essentially, and that all reflects as a full circle moment with your brand. And I think cover those corners and definitely cross the I's and dot the T's. That was a complete wrong way around, wasn't it? I'm keeping it. I'm saving it. Keeping it. Mike, let us know, brother.
Yeah. No, I think it's super. I mean, we've touched on like a lot of like the business stuff. Like obviously, like having like a plan, like when you are like approaching like a school. I also do like workshops and things like that, and like being able to know like what you're worth, like things that we like that we talked about earlier, not selling yourself short. I think like honestly, with like your branding, it's like developing your style as a beatboxer and like a good stage presence, and being able to like approach people after shows, and like just knowing how to like talk to people and just like be approachable. I think that's like super important with branding, like being someone that like people like to come up to, and like you seem like someone that like someone wants to have a conversation with, and then like be like, yeah, like really cool, like I really like your compositions that you perform, and I want to like hire you for a show, things like that. I think that's like super important. Obviously, like I do have like I do like stay on top of like my like I guess like branding, like in terms of like logos and like business cards. I have business cards. I think that's like super important to have. I always have them on me to like hand out to people. I've definitely like made connections through that. But yeah, I think like developing a good approachable personality and like developing your stage presence and like the way you perform on stage. Sorry, I know there's a lot of background noise going on right now, but yeah, I think that's like my answer. Yeah.
Actually,
I wanted to also add to that. Yeah, go for it.
No, I was actually going to ask you a follow-up question specifically for you. Okay. You have over 130,000 Instagram followers. So could you talk more about what the process was like growing your social media there, actually?
Socials is just consistency for the most part. It's formulating all your ideas, making sure you record stuff way in advance so that you stay ahead, and then you just keep recording as you're releasing as it goes. I've got a very good tip for you, and Mike definitely will have seen this one. Have about 5 or 6 outfits laid out on your bed. Set your phone up in one corner, record one video, then get changed, record another video, then get changed, record another video, and vice versa. Just keep that going on, and it will seem like you make content every single day.
He also did a lot of videos with me, and I think that really helped his algorithm.
That gave me a good boost, yeah. They said, who's that handsome chap in the back? But yeah, I think another good thing that you also got to make sure of with branding is, Oh, the points just slipped my mind now. Yeah, it's completely gone. Whatever. But yeah, social media. Social media, I mean, you've got to have a look at you've got to have a look at a lot of parameters. You've got your SEO stuff. You've got, you know, what time's best to post. You've got when's your peak engagement. What sort of knowing your audience is a massive thing as well, and play into what they like. And I think the best thing for that is future thought and preparation. And that comes with even your brand. It could even be like a great example of finding a good name, you know, like Base Ventura has a double meaning to it. It has a pun. It comes from, you know, Ace Ventura and those kind of things that were my favorite movies growing up. But then you've got something like Match and Plant, Forest Fire, right? So it's like, there's a lot of good ways that you can work your branding. And as soon as you get those moments of like, if let's say it's one of you guys here and it's like, oh, I see what you did there. Instantly, brand rapport. And that's what you're trying to build every single time you have an interaction. The more that builds, the more solidified your brand becomes, and then the more solidified your fan base is and people that want to support you, and it continues on from there. So for social media, live on a boat, change your clothes every 5 takes, and then
And do videos with me.
And do videos with Match, yeah.
So Match is saying do videos with him as like a joke, but honestly, a huge part about branding is collaborating and figuring out.
Perfect segue.
Yeah, figuring out who you want to collaborate with. You know, like in his case, it's Plant, and then these guys. It just made sense for them to link up together. Now you have people from his fan base and from his fan base coming together, and it's like, oh wow, new content. And if I have connections with dancers, which I do, maybe I do like a beatboxing dance thing, and that's a collaboration. I'm bringing people from the dance community into the beatbox community, and I'm establishing myself as, you know, and then dancers come and see me, and they're like, oh, he dances too. So you can establish that these ways, and I can dance to, and I've done this in the past, I could dance to Match beatboxing. Now Match's beatbox fan base is coming and seeing me as a dancer, and people from my dance fan base are seeing him as a beatboxer, and they're seeing how the worlds can collide with each other. So that's all really cool, and collaborating is super important. Collaborate with, you know, whoever you think is going to build you up, and maybe that you can build up as well. And another thing that I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, Jack, I know you want to move on.
Keep going.
But
Gold.
so Base Ventura is a man of many talents and passions, and he's able to combine them under this one name. However, I think I'm a different case because BizKit was not always the first thing for me. I'm on my Instagram handle and my YouTube handle, it's all Alex Sanchez creates. And then BizKit is kind of this stage name that I do for this one niche thing. But I'm the brand, you know? That's the most important thing, is to believe in yourself as the brand and market yourself. Like Match was saying, be a decent person, you know, be approachable, be yourself. And people may gravitate towards that, and people might not, but that's you, and it's authentic. And I think that's the most important thing, whether growth is like not necessarily exponential, but maybe like a slow burn, like a slow upward curve. And again, going back to like, you know, how you want to do that. You could do the gimmicky things, you could do or you could just like make authentic stuff, collaborating with really cool people, being your most authentic self. So a lot of ways to go about it.
You asked about social media as well. I think this is just like a really good point as it is. My social media was probably the slowest social media growing all the way up to like 20,000. It took forever. I saw people popping off day in, day out, and I'm like, I've been working for years, back to back, almost every day posting and stuff, and it just wasn't happening. So don't be discouraged by that. Because what you're doing is you're building up your back catalog. When people follow you, you'd be surprised how much they doom scroll through every one of your videos. So you're building that up, so make sure that it's your best work. But there will be those few that hit, and you won't expect it, you won't know when it's happening, and it will blow up like that. I already had the back catalog of stuff that I was already uploading. I probably was at about 50,000, and then from that point it just blew up straight up to like 130, and then up from there. And that was in the space of like, well, we was on the boat, and that was in the space of like, what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
2 weeks, maybe even less. And because of that, everything else started doing well. Then it grew even more. So if you are uploading stuff, brilliant. If you're not getting the traction that you want, does not matter right now. You just have to keep on that grind because everybody's going to look back at that later. So you should be proud of it.
Absolutely. I mean, amazing answers from everybody. And I want to move on to one of our final questions, and I want to point this at ELISII and BizKit. So you guys are both winners of your national championships, and also at BizKit, you're the winner of the Grand Beatbox Battle. I want to know how winning on such a large stage like that, has it helped you in your career outside of battles?
A lot of people think that like winning your battle and getting that title is kind of what pushes you and gets you shows and all that. But it's not like that at all. Like you get your title, but like no one really knows what beatboxing is still. So yeah, exactly. It's just another tick on the list of accomplishments that you could use to market yourself. But that being said, there's a ton of connections you can make going to these events and doing well at these events. So for example, I went to a Scholastic conference where I set up my booth and I was talking to teachers and people from school boards. And one of the people who works for the French Ontario school boards, and he takes care of like over 60 schools, he was actually Phil Dixon's right-hand man, and Phil Dixon is one half of the organizers of the Canadian champs. So he saw me, yeah, super random, but he saw me from when I started battling to when I two-timed Canadian champs. So that was like a huge in for me, and I'm getting a lot of shows through him. So there, like, you find the connections in the most random places to the most random things, and yeah, like doing well at these events does have a very real like result outside of battles. And also just going to these events and like practicing to win will force you to get better, which just makes you better at your craft, which then makes it easy to market to whoever you're trying to market to.
And I will say, depending on the kind of battle that you attend, I think will have its different benefits. Like winning the GBB doubled my Instagram follower count. I went from like 8,000 to like 17,000 or 16,000 in like a couple of weeks. And that was super beneficial for me. Now, you know, a lot more people are engaged with my Instagram stuff. They can see my dancing and stuff that's really cool. But going to the Beatbox House battles, the Beatbox House parties, all that stuff, and I've won a few of those. I've gotten acquainted with the Beatbox House very well, and the kind of people that are in this general area of New York where I'm also from, or that I can commute to very easily. And those people see me and they're like, okay, you're a reliable member of this community. Let's get you more involved in this community. So, and you know, a lot of you guys are regulars to these kind of events. I've seen people come to this event, come to Long Island Beatbox. They also come to Beatbox House parties. You guys are, you know, you're putting yourself out there. You're showing that you really care about this community. You show up for this community. And so, you know, whether or not you win a battle, you know, that's one thing. But even if you just show up and again, make those connections, I can't stress that enough. That's like probably the biggest point of this whole panel right now is make those connections, go out there, put yourself out there. Whether you win, whether you lose, it's what you do there at the event, physically talking to people, marketing and all that stuff.
We just talked about a lot of great ways to, you know, improve your brand, get yourself more out there. The next question I have is actually a two-pronged question, kind of the opposite. What are the most common mistakes you see people make when they're branding? And then on the other end of that, who are the most successful beatbox brands, you think? Kind of like both questions, like both ends, like mistakes and also what brands do you think are successful?
I think one of the biggest branding mistakes that people make is sometimes spreading themselves too thin, or not having a clear vision of where they want to go. So it's almost like we don't know whether we're watching a beatboxer or if it's this or it's that. That's where that that familiarity has to be built, and it is a long grind. I feel like people just kind of go, I'm here, I do these 5 things, and you know. Another big thing is, like, I've made this mistake a lot, is switching up content from like beatbox stuff to, like, I don't know, cleaning jewelry or doing this or doing that. And you know, it kind of confuses your audience a little bit. You have to imagine it as your audience are very like, imagine it as like, this is a very bad example, but imagine it as like some toddlers that are like just new to the world and are just trying to like understand, and they're taking in this one thing, right? If you throw too much at that person at that one point, it's overloading. It just is. Not to say that you know, people are toddlers, but it's just it's overwhelming. It's very overwhelming for your audience. Another key mistake with branding as well, I would say, is just being very disingenuine. So not being you, essentially, you know, having this like very, yo, what's going on YouTube, blah, 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 and then you just kind of like, okay, kind of like a Logan Paul back in the day kind of thing. It's not going to do it, do you know what I mean? But yeah, man, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think just some of the things that we talked about earlier with like approaching people like after events or shows, having your like business cards and like things like that ready to like hand to people, not doing those, like those are very simple things, like business cards, like even something as simple as that, not having a website. I think like not having a website, like things like that, which are very, very helpful for like outreach and like people finding your stuff and being like, and just like reaching like the things that you do. I think that's like just a very simple mistake or like oversight rather, like people might not think that they need to do it. Yeah, I think that's like a very simple thing that can be remedied. But yeah.
To go to the other end of the question, I think one of the most successful beatbox brands right now is Berry Wom, like undoubtedly.
Agreed.
And they've been consistently one of the most solid beatbox brands for like years at this point. Ever since like, probably like around their videos were coming out in like 2015. And like, people were just like, oh my God, a beatbox crew of this caliber. So one, they were like the pioneers, not the pioneers necessarily, but like pioneers to do this thing that already existed at a level nobody even like thought was possible. And it just sounded so unreal. But not only that, they market themselves so well. Like MB14, back when he was a part of Berry Wom, he did the voice that launched Berry Wom, which, you know, is another passion project that probably helped out a lot. It's like, oh, it's that guy from The Voice. This is what he's doing with 3 other people. Wawad, French champion. Oh, if he's French champion, look at him. This is another thing he does. You know, same. Beastie, Rhythmind, GBB Loop Station champions. Oh, they solo beatbox too. Oh, they're in a crew. So, again, collaboration is like such a crazy thing, man. It's just like all these incredible people coming together and they're being themselves. They do use little gimmicks from time to time, but they're so quality and they are so for real that they can get away with it because it's not just the gimmick. It's a stepping stone to be like, oh yeah, but I do this for real. Put me on a stage on tour in France. We can do that. We have our 30-minute sets that range from solo stuff, tag stuff, crew stuff, loop stuff, everything. So all-rounders, I think, is a big part of, you know, and there is a little bit of like that notion of spreading yourself too thin. It's like, oh, they do too much, but they do too much within a confined like space. And it is all just beatbox and very skilled and talented beatbox, musical beatbox, all this stuff. So I think Berry Wom is like a key figure to look at when it comes to branding.
Yeah, and kind of like back to a couple of my other points before, Berry Wom's like a really crazy mix between like the gimmicky stuff and like the full-on professional stuff, and then like the whole live show stuff. Like I got to see their show live, and they sold out a venue in Montreal. Like I've never seen a beatbox show in Montreal have over 25 people, and they're all friends and family. So like that's insane. So yeah, they're like a really great mix between the gimmicky stuff and like the real stuff. I don't know if that's the way I should describe it, but whatever. That's how I did it. And even their gimmicky stuff is like really high quality, which is insane too. And back to another point I made, in terms of like your national championship, holding any weight in terms of like having a profitable career as a beatboxer, I got linked to this group. It's an a cappella group called Quartz through Barry Wham. And Barry Wham would have most likely not known who I was if I didn't have success in the battling scene, unless I like pulled a BV and went like crazy on Instagram. Yeah. But like it's weird how all these connections just happen. And in this case, it was kind of naturally. I was just kind of taking whatever gig came my way, and then now it led me to work in schools pretty consistently.
One really final and important question that we want to ask you, and let me just get my paper out so I don't say it wrong. So we talked about beatboxing as it is right now, but the point of this discussion is to truly uncover what the future of beatbox might be and what we have to do in order to make it sustainable as a career. So with everything considered and everything we talked about today, is beatboxing truly a viable career path, either as an artist or a business, today or in the future?
Yes, 1000%. I mean, how many industries have you seen start from absolutely nothing and then grow, right? The main thing that people need to realize is you are the brand. And I know we talk about things like gimmicky aspects and that kind of stuff, but there is so many different avenues you can explore. You can take beatboxing into comedy, right? And like all comedy, there's good comedy and bad comedy. There's good gimmicks and what some other people do. You know, you can get into, it's even thinking from like Jack's perspective, taking something from like just like an event like this and then taking it into like a pay-per-view route, like you were touching on before, Giancarlo, where it is on ESPN or it is on these big production broadcasts. You can take it through to voice acting, you can take it through to radio, TV, the whole lot. I've had some really weird gigs before now where I've turned up and they're like, oh no, you're actually doing this. And then I'm like, oh, but it's turned out good. And they usually pay the best. The weirder, sometimes the better. Yes, it is essentially a viable career path, but you have to make sure you're ready to work. Because once you start that journey, there is no fallback. I have no fallback. All right? So I have to make it work. And there is no better motivation than that. I would say put yourself in that predicament and just go for it, you know? The only person who's going to believe in you is you. And until you start doing that, it's not going to work outside of that, you know? What do you say, Mikey boy?
Can you stop calling me that? No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, I think it can be viable. You have to be like what Lou was saying with like multiple things. You have to be like BV was saying. You have to be open to like multiple different things. So like you can't like performing, like 100% performing and being able to sustain yourself full time is like barely anyone is able to do that, like solely through just performing. You have to like open yourself. It's not even just with beatboxing, it's with music as a whole. One of my friends, he plays wind instruments. He subs on Broadway. He teaches. He like does music production. He does all of these things that technically encompasses him to like being a full-time musician, but he does not just perform shows full-time. So I think it can be, yes, you just have to, one, put yourself out there, everything we talked about, like with networking, branding, all that stuff, and two, be open to multiple avenues and like using your beatboxing in different ways, collaborating with other artists that like have other different proficiencies than yours, like dancing, even someone playing, I don't know, bassoon or something, or like, I don't know, like something, I don't know, dude, just like other types of performers. Like you have to be open to that kind of stuff and not just beatboxing, like, you know, just beatboxing. And yeah,
the more open-minded that you can be and the more flexible you can be as an artist will definitely, gain you the most, opportunities in terms of jobs. And maybe you won't love all of them, but, that's the risk that you take with being an artist and putting yourself out there, is sometimes you're going to do jobs that maybe you thought would be good for you, but ended up not being good. And then you can kind of figure out your path from there. I think a path that I really want to pursue, and that some beatboxers like Hershey, Vocoder, and Honeycomb are already starting to take, is festivals. I think if the beatbox house has proved anything, it's that the beatboxing and EDM scene are like this, and there's so much mutual love for what each other does, and how cool the sounds that we can create either digitally or organically. And I think beatboxing on music festival stages, they could be electronic or not. I think that's just a perfect pair, because you can do your most authentic beatboxing self and, you know, not be worried about like the frequencies, like, oh, it's too much like a drop. They're there for that. They're there for the drops. They're there for the craziness. So I think that's just a match made in heaven right there. It's the festival route.
I think beatboxing could definitely be viable as a career. It's just up to your own like ingenuity to figure out how you want to do that for yourself, whether that's through, you know, making videos like Shogo or reacting to videos like Sin and Shazam. Like they were able to throw like 20,000 euros at like a bunch of beatboxers, which is nuts for an online battle. But like, yeah, there's a million ways to do it. You don't need to stay stuck in the idea of doing shows or working in schools or making social media content. There's a million ways to do it, and there's probably a million and one ways that we haven't figured out yet. So yeah, like explore, do it the way you want to do it. Don't force yourself to do it. When you're not having fun, it just ruins it. Yeah.
Wonderful answers from everybody. So that was the final question for our panel. We want to leave it open for another 5 minutes or so we don't go completely over time. Quick questions from the audience. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. You can go first, and you can point the question at anybody or just open it up to the panel.
How do you feel like that you like adjust your mindset and you set when you're doing a show for beatboxers and for non-beatboxers?
That is a great question. Yeah, that was a great question, because that is something that I thought about, that I forgot, that I didn't really touch on. Yeah, so like this is like a huge thing, and this kind of goes with like how do we bridge that gap? I think not thinking totally within like how you structure like a battle routine and stuff, and how you're like doing beat after beat, and you're like that's really great to be able to like put into your compositions, but also like when you're doing like a normie audience, dude, sometimes that goes dummy, like that goes really stupid. People love that, dude. Like, so like I think yes, tailoring to your audience. Like my judge showcase tonight is not going to be, some of it, yes, I do still do my battle stuff, or like my battle compositions for general audiences, and they will love that. However, there are some drops and stuff that I like simplify, and that I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't do that for like you know, like if I've opened a couple comedy shows, I wouldn't necessarily do that there. But there's a lot of like things that you can do at both. But I think, yeah, thinking in terms of like you're more like complex, or like stuff where you're doing like, you know, a lot of like high inward bass stuff, like you just need to like tailor it, like simplify it a little bit. I think that's something that's super important when it comes to like bridging that gap between beatbox and like, you know, general audience and entertainment stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Matt said there. For me, it's just a little tip would be, if you are in like a club setting or something like that, keep an ear out to see what people are responding to. If they're responding to R&B, you know you've got a little bit of an R&B set, you can switch that up a little bit, play to what the crowd's gonna like, simplify mainly. When we do some of the technical stuff, it gets lost. And then before you know it, you know, you lose the energy and the wave of the audience and the hype and so on. So yeah, listen to what's going on, what are they receptive to, and play to the strength.
I actually find you could get away with doing a lot of like crazy beatbox intensive stuff in like normie shows, for lack of a better term. But you kind of have to like walk the audience through your performance. You can't like start going crazy, but you can build to a point, and it's all about making things like relatable and understandable to a crowd that doesn't know what beatboxing is or hasn't heard it in the way that you're gonna do it. So, you know, building levels to your set, and like building up to that crescendo moment where you go full on like aggressive tech mode.
Yeah, it's kind of like that approach to social media that we were talking about, where we use the gimmicky beats, the oop, oop, you know, the stuff that, you know, like
Hey, that's my favorite beat, bro.
it's the stuff that's like, you know, so secondhand to us at this point when we would rather be, you know, all that stuff. You know, you can get them. That was good, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite beat of yours.
You can get them into, you know, you can get them invested with the gateway, you know, the more digestible, accessible thing. And then now that you have their attention, you can say what you really have to say, and they'll still be here for it because you already got them. It's now it's just like, okay, now to my main point, you know. That's the thing.
All right, so once again, make some noise for your panel.